Good morning. On today's Coffee with Colleagues, I'm going to be interviewing Matt Salas. Matt works at a charter school, Armijo Academy, which is located on the west side of Albuquerque. Matt and I attended the same MBA program from the Anderson School of Management located at the University of New Mexico. Matt is a great friend. I've had the opportunity to see him in his natural habitat, instructing students in his own classroom, and so he is a welcome guest on the show. Please, let's welcome Matt Salas. And we're on. Welcome to another episode of Coffee of Colleagues, and I'm joined by a very special guest and friend, Matthew Salas. Mr. Salas, how are you doing, sir?
Mr. B, I'm doing great. Let me just start by saying good morning and cheers to you. And also congratulate you on doing this. This is awesome. I love it. I love when you put these together. I think it's a really cool idea that, can highlight and showcase, what's happening in education in all different parts. So kudos to you, Mr. B.
Thank you for your kind words. I will, of course, give you the payment for making those kind words after we
Just make it out to cash.
Okay. Debit cash or credit cash expenses, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh gosh. So I saw your mug. What are you sipping on today?
This is it's called Joey's Coffee. I bought it at Sprouts. It's from Oregon. I just gave it a try and man, I really like it. It has a good kick. Yeah, I've been trying new coffees lately.
Excellent. I
Yeah.
currently have a Pinon.
Oh yeah.
They're New Mexican coffee added with the little pinon nut. I actually
Theirs is
did
good.
something a little special this morning. I put brown sugar and almond milk, and it did not go well. I had to take the whole cup and just dump it out.
Did you just try that randomly or did you?
Coffee of colleagues. I had to do something different.
I love it. I love it.
Sometimes innovation doesn't work very well, and
Yeah, trial by error, as long as you're trying something new. I've found that's the doing new things and trying new stuff is working out to keep me the most sane during COVID.
yeah,
So
the
failure is good too.
the ironic thing. I'm just going to move you closer here. The ironic thing is that I saw that as a little bit of a metaphor for education currently. So sometimes things aren't working. Some of the different things that we're doing, and we just have to dump and restart. And I think that while a lot of practices that teachers are doing right now is transferred over from pre-COVID practices, there are things that are just different today. We
Yeah.
got to innovate. We got to try some new things.
Yeah. I 100% agree with you that, things that worked less than a year ago that you love, that you enjoy doing, you got to throw a lot of that out the window right now and just try something new, get out of your element. I think that's the hard part is you're gonna just fall on your face multiple times. That's the most frustrating thing that I'm hearing and I've come across myself. But you got to do it. It's part of the profession. Out with the old, in with the new.
So what are some things that you're doing new? Like what are some things that you're innovating?
Well, you know, the biggest thing I'm doing is, at my school at Mark Armijo Academy is I've really just become the most flexible I possibly can with every student situation. Like this one kid just tells me that his microphone doesn't work, so I talk to him like this, and I have to sit and wait for him to type a response in the chat. So it ends up taking 3 times as long, but it worked. That's what's best for him in his situation. Um, I've tried. I use some new tech. I use a whiteboard a lot on my computer to do math problems and stuff. It's harder. I think a lot of kids have technical issues that I can't control. A lot of them, I've been doing a lot of texting. It just takes twice as long, dude, but they'll text me a picture of their screen, and that's the easiest way for them to troubleshoot things. And so I end up having, instead of saying something for a minute, I end up having to send 10 texts. And the frustration builds, but if it works for that one or two students, then I got to do it for them.
You know, I too have found myself in a new school, new position, but I'm seeing that the technical problems aren't just with students. We have generational,
Yeah.
we're not seeing problems, but skill deficiencies. And I have some families that have never had a computer.
Yeah.
And that in 2020, that was the most eye-opening, eye-opener for equity, because we just assume, and I think a lot of education is built upon assumptions that these skills have just permeated into society, and there are pockets where it hasn't, and we have to adjust. We have to make that extra step. We have to really be that stopgate, to plug in those issues.
Even access to internet, it's like you just assume, hey, you're on Facebook all day or Instagram or doing this, you're on YouTube, but when there's a different level of data and speed that you need when there's multiple people at home working, like we have the highest package with Comcast or Xfinity, and we go over it in 20 days of our billing cycle, and we have great internet. And just seeing now, there's a lot of families that, geez, they just don't have the speed or magnitude to do the basic things that they need for school or work if they're working from home, and a lot of people can't afford it. It's expensive. It's a lot of people will say it's a luxury, but I think it's a necessity now. I even thought that before, but it just seeing it now more, it's sad.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to praise you. You're one of the people that I've actually been able to see teach in a classroom. I want to thank you for allowing me to step into marketing.
Yeah, that was fun. That seems so long ago now. It seems like
2 years ago.
10 years ago, when things were normal.
Yeah.
That was fun. I remember that.
Yeah. So one of the things that I remember just so distinctly, and that's my dog's outside. Welcome to home here.
Yeah.
I remember so distinctly your passion and your care for your students, and the things that I was just mentally taking notes on were your interactions with your students and how you've built up that relationship. There was a familiarity there. There was, the jovial nature, but also kind of that little bit of that accountability to come along with it. Hey, you got to get your stuff in.
Yeah.
And I saw you meet your kids where they're at. And I think you've touched upon it a little bit, but how are you still able to have that type of camaraderie and that rapport with students in this digital environment?
Man, I have the type of personality, as you saw when you were, I like to joke around with the kids and mess with them, and I have individual handshakes with some students. I know a lot of their families, so I always ask how they're doing. I like that personal interaction, face-to-face stuff. And so that when you have that rapport with kids or students specifically, you're able to get more out of them, I think. And now we can, you and I could probably still mesh well and have a great time on video chat like this, but it's difficult for kids, man. Like, it's hard to do it. Phone call and text and video chat, it's not the same with them. And so it's hard. I find myself being more of a motivator than a teacher now in a lot of respects, because it's just trying to get those kids motivated to stuff when usually I could do that with a strong side hug or a handshake that I have with some kids, and that to get them motivated, or pull them aside and tell them to make fun of my hair for thinning out or something. I something like that to get them laughing, and like just like you're laughing now is, if if it's gonna if you need to make fun of me for a few minutes to get you into what's going on, then do it, or let's do something. But it's hard to do it now. It's really hard, and some of them are struggling right now, and a lot of them miss that school in-person interaction.
I know that that I thrive on that personal interaction, and so I think the only thing harder than digitally teaching is probably digitally learning. And
Yeah,
so
oh yeah,
we got to experience that
yeah.
in our final semester of MBA, and in our MBA program. I'm just curious, how did that, your own personal reflection of having to learn in that type of environment, what frustrations did you have in that final semester?
It's we're we were in a program. We all are college educated. The learning, you basically learn on your own, or for my case anyway. You're teaching yourself. Um, Being in a Zoom meeting with and 20 people, and there's a screen going, and there's a lot of things going on around you. You're at home. I'm at home with a 1 and 3 year old screaming all the time. Um, you, I, I got frustrated with it when it came to the class stuff on Zoom. I was checked out. I was burnt out from it, especially when you're on for 3 4 hours. Like, man, it was brutal.
And we were
But
to be on there 3 4 hours, 2 days or one day a week.
yeah, and
And
then we would do it with our groups after class too. And it's just hard being in front of the screen like this in a learning environment. It's really hard, and um, yeah, I just learned the most outside of the Zoom stuff on my own, doing the homework and tests and everything. It was rough, man. I'm not gonna lie. I was pretty checked out for most of it. The one good thing that kept me going anyway was, seeing everyone's face, check their text right away, because there's sometimes within 10 minutes we'd have 200 texts going on and just random stuff. That kept me through it. That made me want to go to the class, but the learning part was just hard.
we're not going to mention who was the most of those text messages, are we?
It doesn't matter. Eventually after 3 hours, pretty much everyone contributed. So it doesn't matter who started it.
And that's community there, and part of the community was able to be established even when we had a
Yeah.
professor who shut down the Zoom chat because that was going on. So we had to resort to text messages. Community had already been established.
Yeah.
So I think the big issue today is, we're coming in fresh, and some of these kids have never interacted with each other before ever. How do you establish that digital community right away?
Especially with new kids to the school, or in my case, freshmen that we don't get to sell the school to them, like really say what we offer, because we really rely heavily on that part at our school, is building the relationship part. And hard to do, man. Like, the only thing you can do is just do your best to do that through this format or text. I send, even though some kids don't come to class a couple times, I still send them like warming or motivational texts, just to let them know that I'm here. I try to relay my sense of humor through it too, with some silly memes or something. But it's just sometimes there's crickets, but that's the nature of the beast right now. Deal with it.
So you're at Mark Armijo Academy. How long have you been there? And you were there before it was Mark Armijo Academy.
Yeah, so this is my 9th year at the school. It was Nuestros Valores before. Now, man, maybe 6 or 7 years ago, it changed to Mark Armijo Academy. So yeah, man, that's been my whole educational career at that school. 9 years.
Tell us a little bit about the mission of the school and just kind of how your own philosophical educational approaches kind of aligns to that.
Yeah, so it's we really strive to the mission, is to provide an innovative classroom setting for students that for whatever reason didn't succeed or fit or enjoy the traditional school model like of bigger schools. So a lot of what we do is we individualize everything or do our best to individualize everything for the kids. So like and it fits me perfect. Like I with the class that you came to visit, I had individualized. There was a dozens of different things going on in that class with different students. Like you said, I met them where they're at, and I don't. You have to build that, scaffold them up to the level that they should be and want to be at, and so literally, man, I would even now I'm still doing it here online. Like I would go from one kid sitting next to another one, and they would be working on two different completely things, and it was to meet them at their level. I didn't feel like it was appropriate or moral to have someone working on something that they just can't do yet. So to get them there. So that's I that definitely wasn't my style when I started teaching. I adapted to the school and to the population of the students.
I mean that in there is the practices reflect growth mindset. Each student has the capacity to grow, and they grow, but the starting place is maybe very in very disparate places, right? So
yeah,
our job as educators is to accomplish that type of growth. The thing that I'm really struck by is the whole individualization of education. I think that's where we're heading, and it's gonna be one size fits all type of system approach, and it's gonna be. I think there's going to be a lot of more modular components to education. There's the must-haves, and we're going to be building in all these different student-driven or family-driven or even career planning. What's your end goal, especially when you're in school? And so, how do we develop those skill capacities? And I think the charter world is a really cool test tube to kind of see.
Yeah.
How they come from those things. So tell us about your experiences in a charter school, and maybe even bring into some of the MBA practicum approaches that you.
Yeah, man. So more so the past 3 or 4 years, I've been able to go to different charter schools and speak to different teachers and administrators there, and man, there's some cool things going on in charter schools. Like I love, and each one's so different, but in such a good way. And I love that, like walking into some schools, there's some schools you walk in and you just hit with the environment of the school. And you can feel it that this is its focus, and they pounce on that, and the kids there know it. You can feel that right away. And that's something that I in working at Mark Armijo, I as a teacher does, you want to take from things and then hold your own. And so the focus, the different classroom styles, the different programs different schools have, like as much as bad press charter schools get oftentimes, I don't think people really understand how unique the charter schools are here in New Mexico, and that's really a shame. I've always felt, but I think part of that is the promotion of charter schools. Man, it's hard for them to do it, and it's hard for them to get out to present their school to the public, what they really do and how great they are. It sucks because, man, if there's someone watching this that hasn't had any experience with a charter school, they have kids, they need to try it because there's really cool things. And in charter schools, there's a lot more flexibility to, do new things and innovative things. And I think that's a great benefit to them.
Yeah, so I spent the last 4 years working in a charter school here in New Mexico. I recently jumped over to the district of APS, and it's very different approaches, but there's a place for both. There's a place
Yeah.
for um, the district who has a lot of support structures that are built in, and so it has a wide wake and a little bit slower moving, but man, it really tries to hit everybody. And then you have the charter schools, which are a little bit more nimble. I'm thinking about ships in the water, and so they
Yeah.
can be a little bit speedboats. They don't have necessarily the wide wake of water dispersion, but it's nimble and it's responsive to the communities that they serve. And
Yeah.
so, I mean, that's kind of what the charter promise is. And so, tell us a little bit about your practicum. What did you end up studying?
Yeah. So my focus was on charter schools. And, so an assumption I had was that charter schools didn't have the resources to promote themselves. And that was essentially proved to be true during my practicum. At charter schools, as you know, that you have one or two people that are in charge of combined 10, 11 things. When at a district school, you have one person that does that or two people that do that one thing. And so, the resources are limited and personnel is stretched thin. And, nationwide and in New Mexico, the perception of charter schools is largely negative. And, so my research focused on not only why is that perception negative, but what is being done to change that perception at all levels, not just at the local schools, but at the district, the city, and the state levels, and what practices could be used to better promote charter schools individually and as collectively. And my research found that there's not a lot, and people at all levels admitted that interviews and discussions that there's not a lot of promotion going on. And that puts charter schools in a bind. What APS, for example, has their whole department that can put up billboards or run ads and stuff, put up stuff on their website and collectively pull information from schools to promote them. But that's not the case for charter schools. And and the biggest thing that scares me for charter schools is the student population. There's actually been a decrease in school age students over the past few years, and it's going to decrease more in the future. And charter school enrollment has essentially plateaued over the past few years. So what ended up being a big part of my practicum that it wasn't at the beginning was, what are charter schools going to do when this overall student population is decreasing and you have all these schools competing with each other? Now it's a competition. And schools need students to stay open, and you combine that with the removal of the small school size adjustment. Like now small charter schools have to grow. So all these schools, and then you have your district schools that have lost students to charter schools are now looking for ways to increase their enrollment, and then you have charter schools now having to grow or face closure. And it's just and put on top of that the declining student enrollment and population. Like it's a fight. It's a battle if you want to keep a certain enrollment to maintain a level of funding or just to stay open. Like you gotta be out there and promote yourself. And so that ended up being the biggest part of it at the end. Is I researched best practices. I took a lot of stuff from the private sector, which was really cool, and created this novel system about how charter schools, or schools in general, but I focused on charter schools, can take these private sector practices and approaches implement them to help increase the exposure of their school, because a lot of them don't, and it's going to be hard for them, when they don't have the word of mouth about their school, or their school zone or area is decreasing in student population, and then you don't have a digital footprint. So how do people know about you? It's just hard. It's a mess, man. But it's going to be interesting the next 5 years to see where schools are in enrollment wise.
In my own approaches, I mean, we were on parallel tracks, but
Yeah, I remember.
kind of going in different directions. I remember even sharing resources. Hey,
Yeah,
I thought this was going to be useful to me. It's not. It's
yeah,
not going to work for you. So my own approaches were similar. It's around the principle: how do schools find the right, advertise the right fit for the right families, and how do families find that fit? Because the district school has its benefits, and then a charter school has its benefits. And so I ended up looking at School Finder applications in other districts, and just how they were able to advertise the programs that would appeal to families, so that you end up getting a stronger fit. And if you get a stronger fit, and that comes from the alignment between the values that the school has prioritized and the family's own values system. If you have a stronger alignment, you have a greater chance of sustained success. And so that is the kind of 30,000 foot
yeah,
view of the whole thing. And I think that more so today than ever before, educators, schools need to embody greater cooperation and collaboration than ever before. And the one thing that I am remiss in the charter world, and even from district school to district school, is you have like your own little island. And this, it's just about the island. It's not just about the island, it's about communicating between the different islands, because ultimately it's about the kid, and it's about the family. And so I really do think that that we do need to break out of the mindset that education happens only in the four walls of our own classroom,
yeah,
in the four or many dodecahedron walls of the school.
yeah,
We need to get out of that mindset.
yeah. I think I think I agree with you. I just don't understand what the hesitation is to that. I don't understand why would someone be opposed to that. Um, it's something I've thought about a lot, especially with charter schools. Where's that synchronous element? Where's in district schools, where, like, other than the feeder schools, like where's the collaboration and partnership with other schools? And another thing, like, in a good way, not sit. We're going to collaborate by sitting in a 2-hour PD and someone talking to us, like something real, because I think the state, city and state and everything could benefit really from it. And
I think it's by
and just,
design, and I think that
yeah,
there is some hesitancy and reluctancy between some educational leaders, but I think that also that an intentional, what do you call it, a melting pot of ideas, of innovative practices. Where does that exist? I mean,
insert cohort 2020.
that's
There you
right.
go.
Whatever that was.
Yeah.
Shout out to Anderson School of Management,
Yes.
and the formerly named Woodrow Wilson Fellowship. So check
Yeah.
out
That
the program.
that that sounds like a perfect spot for 2020 cohort to enter and change everything, improve it. And we always talked about that, but I think, with the collection of people in our cohort, man, like, could do great things if, we're all allowed to work together in some fashion.
It's true. That is absolutely true. So some of the ideas that I'm moving forward, and me, I've already spoken to Gina and to Frank, and about how do we tap into that raw capacity of
Yeah.
alumni. I guess we're alumni now. Alumni have not had a diploma yet, but
Yeah. Well, snail mail.
that's right. That's right. So, but how do we do that? And I think that ultimately it has to come down to an intentionality of design. It's not going to happen, overnight. But
Yeah,
when Hurricane Katrina went through and leveled New Orleans, there was it was education system there was flipped upside down, and you could experiment. But there was a very, very, even though we had a lot of different models of education that came out of it, there was an
yeah,
intentional practice. And so I think that we as educators, we as educational leaders in schools and districts are going to have to start putting our minds together and think, ultimately it's about the family, it's about the students, and how do we take best practices, which some may be appropriate to our population, some may not, other
yeah,
practices may not, but how do we understand all that's already out there, so then it saves some of that innovative practice. Some of our innovation may just be implementation. How do we
yeah.
implement some of these new concepts? So it's exciting,
Yeah.
but it's
In
require some.
insert also coffee with colleagues. This is a great this is a great resource, man, to share ideas and we can even print out our cohort's text thread. We got
Oh,
tons of ideas going through that
there's some
thread.
text messages we shouldn't print out, but the ones that are.
No, but I think it's great, man, like the relationship our cohort has. And we're still all communicating on a weekly basis on that text thread, and we're all rooting for each other. We all we all still, I think everybody would love to work together, and I think we all have bring different pieces of innovation. I think it's really unique. I think our cohort, and you said about maintaining some type of something in the future to build on that. I think that's a great idea. I still think about it a lot. I have it on my to-do list that keeps growing every day. But man, once things started ramping up with especially around the shooting of George Floyd, like I was talking to Peter and a few other from the cohort. I was like, man, like we got to do something. Like there's something we got to do, not just now through the election, but like we got to, there's something we should do. And I'm just still thinking of ideas for our cohort to collectively do something, that's better for society overall, for us to collaborate on something. So I think we have the great minds um, in that one cohort that just could do great things.
There's I mean, education is the great equalizer, or
Yeah,
it's supposed to be the great equalizer, but it's the one field that intersects every single field out there. I mean, it's the baseline. It's the launching pad for every other career. If you want, a career in law, you're going to have to get that degree. Or if you want
yeah,
a career in I don't know, government, you have to meet some
yeah,
requirements. So then, it's intentionally filling, noticing where the areas of gaps are, and a lot of it's community resources as well. Like education is now the field that is on the front lines of providing community resources.
yeah,
So if we only, I think it's remarkable how wide and large education is. We also kind of lose sight of all the different things. Well, we understand, but sometimes other people looking into education just don't see how education is in every single little track of
yeah.
society here.
Every 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 part of it, man. It's education touches everything in some way.
So what do you see yourself in the next few years? So like what do you have on the back burner that
Yeah, I mean, there's COVID definitely put slowed down a lot of things. I wanted to do. Um, I don't know. I think I don't have a something set in my mind. It would be great to be a principal or assistant principal or work at some district office or the state or something. Anything. I don't have anything set that I'm like shooting for right now, but I guess I'm looking at areas that I can really make a change in and succeed at. I know I don't know, it's something, that I think about often, it continues to change, as I learn stuff. I definitely had ideas 2 years ago when we started the program, and now that's evolved the more I learned about different things. So I don't know. I definitely see myself doing something. I'm just not sure what it is. And I know I sound like I'm just talking craziness, but I'm not sure. I'm in that weird spot where like going different ways with different things. I'm not sure what I want to
Dude,
do. Like,
I not only understand what you're saying, or empathize with what you're saying. I'm right there. There's so
yeah.
many. I kind of thought my MBA would help focus. But
You know what? It just puts you out there. It's like
it,
because now our interest and our knowledge and stuff has expanded. And so I think, that's just opened up different modes of interests, and
mhm.
it has us seeking out different possible opportunities. But but I always thought, I'm 34 years old. I always thought by now I'd have at least most of it figured out, but I don't know.
And maybe to kind of wrap things up there. I mean, I think our families, our students are in similar places, but 20 years, 30 years, behind where we're at, and I think it's just about equipping of the right skills, showing where all the networks of resources are,
Yeah.
and then just encouraging ideas to blossom and grow in a safe habitat of education. And I think that it's this process where we're always reinventing ourselves, reinventing.
You know what? And I'm getting tired of that. I'm tired of thinking and reinventing and stirring up it's it's tiring, man. I just, wish I had the one answer. Oh,
Didn't we have this course called
yes, yeah,
management here?
yes, I have mine over here somewhere. Yeah, yeah. So maybe I need to go back to some of the books and stuff from our program. You know what? Maybe accounting is the thing for me, and I'm just gonna follow that footstep. That was
Depper.
that. Yes, I missed Tepper. Uh, once accounting, like who walks into accounting and says, "I'm excited for this class," and I left the class like this is pretty cool actually. I like it, but
Well,
who knows?
yeah.
Who knows?
Well, Matt, I mean, I've much kudos to you, the work that you're doing. Shout out to all of Mr. Salas's students. Um, proof of civic participation. You get yourself a free meal. That's what a reward there. So
Yeah, I've been doing that. For those that don't know, I do it every year, even non-presidential elections. Like if you even the midterms and the summers, I've been doing it for decades. If a student takes a selfie now, well, if they take a selfie of them at the voting booth or in, filling out um their sheet, can't think of the word right now, but
about
yeah, ballot. There you go. And they send it to me. I treat them to lunch, and over the decade, a few students have done it. And buy them some lunch. Couple students from the past, I bought them tickets to go see Avengers when that came out. And that was, it was like, what do you want? A sandwich, or do you want to go see Avengers? Like, pick. And of course, they picked Avengers. So, it's a little point that I throw out there every year to get people to participate. Even, if it sparks, if this is their first time voting, maybe this will start that process to make it a habit every year, every election time, even local elections. I do it. So I hope. I've been getting a lot of feedback from kids. I hope. I told them if I go broke, that's okay. I'll borrow money from my wife. That's all right. Not a big deal. My kids have a savings account. I'll dip into that. It's all right.
Oh, that's awesome. Matt, it was just a pleasure and honor to have you on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Mr. B. I'm telling you, this Coffee with Colleagues, this idea, it's fantastic. I hope you continue with it, and I can't wait to see it grow. This is a great idea.
Absolutely. Well, hope that you have a wonderful day. See ya.
All right, you too.